Welcome to Storytime with Texas Red. I'm Paul Halperin, also known as Texas Red, and I'm going to read you another one of my true stories. The title of this story is Palimony, 1983. This is a true story about a drug, alcohol, and anger-fueled 6-month marriage in crisis, a probable divorce, and a spontaneous side trip to one of America's great party cities. Trust me, I have lots of insane marriage stories, but I'm saving those for other episodes. Okay, here's the story. It was April 1983, and my time living under 6 pseudonyms in Las Vegas was coming to an end. Sadly, I could no longer be Dr. Carl Fisher. As I explained in earlier episodes, my short-term relationships had ended with Sammy, the dancer at the Las Vegas Hilton, and Angie, the blackjack dealer at the Las Vegas MGM Grand. Now it was time to focus on the divorce, and I had another one of my brilliant ideas. Okay, before I go any further, I want to take a second to describe a brief scene that often played out with me and my friends. It went something like this. I would say, "Hey, I got an idea," and my friends would run screaming. Well, here's the idea. The famous movie actor, Lee Marvin, was in a legal battle with Michelle Triola, the woman he had lived with for years. They'd never been married, and there was no prenup or other legal arrangement for Marvin's companion to receive alimony when the relationship ended. Ms. Triola even legally changed her name to Michelle Marvin. Ultimately, there was a widely publicized breakup, and Michelle Marvin retained eccentric, high-profile Beverly Hills lawyer Marvin Mitchelson to represent her and demand a settlement for what he called palimony. The story was aggressively covered by all the media, tabloids, and gossip magazines. They all used the new term coined by Mitchelson, palimony. I liked the sound of it, and it appeared to be the perfect way for me to finance my current unconventional lifestyle. But seriously, unconventional is an understatement. I set out to get an appointment with Mitchelson in Beverly Hills. I called his office from my hotel room in Las Vegas, exaggerated my pending divorce situation, and made reference to all my Vegas connections. And I got the fucking appointment. I've drawn a complete blank regarding my trip from Vegas to LA and where I was staying in LA, but I clearly remember my preparation for the meeting. My wardrobe was a dark gray pinstripe Canali suit with a tailored white cotton shirt, Bruno Magli shoes, and a hand-painted Italian silk tie. I'd been carrying that outfit with me in a polo hanging bag for a few weeks, ever since I left San Antonio, my hometown. I was wearing my gold Omega Seamaster DeVille watch that my parents had given me for high school graduation in 1964. I'm saving for another episode the 2 bizarre sagas regarding the times I lost and then found that watch. But I digress. I hired a black stretch limo to take me to the law office in Beverly Hills. Mitchelson's office was legendary. Coffee and tea were served on fine china. And, as is often rumored about lawyers who exist in the rarefied air of Beverly Hills, there was actually a Monet in the bathroom. The meeting was pretty short. Mitchelson was succinct. He said he would gladly take my case, and he would need a $10,000 retainer. And that's where I lost my nerve. That was not a part of my big idea. I didn't have 10 grand, and in my brilliant thinking, I was sure that retainer was way out of line. I simply thanked Mr. Mitchelson for the meeting, said I'd get back to him, and left his office. I later learned that the 10 grand retainer was typical for Beverly Hills lawyers. At a loss for any other brilliant ideas, I decided to give up on my pursuit of palimony and go back to San Antonio and meet with hometown lawyers I'd known since childhood. In spite of my recent arrest record and psych institutionalization in San Antonio, the law firm took the case, greatly as a favor to my parents, and they agreed to handle my divorce in the traditional fashion. I spent the night in LA, and the next day I changed back into my jeans, pink and charcoal rayon 50s style short sleeve shirt, oxblood leather windbreaker, and Cutterbill's blue anteater boots. I took the limo to LAX and I bought a ticket to San Antonio at the Southwest Airlines ticket counter. It was the 80s. You didn't book online because there wasn't any online. In the gate area, waiting to board the plane, checking out my fellow travelers, I noticed a stunning young woman kissing her fiancé goodbye. I assumed the guy was her fiancé because she had a diamond ring on her finger. I was witnessing young love, a heartfelt airport goodbye, and a serious public display of affection. The woman appeared to be in her mid-20s. She was about 5'6", with shoulder-length dark brown hair, ice blue eyes, and a swimsuit model's body. She was wearing a tight navy skirt just above her knees, a crisp white cotton shirt, and black heels. I was intrigued. It was open seating on Southwest, and the young woman boarded the plane with a guy who looked like a business associate. He was a 30-something corporate type, wearing a beige off-the-rack suit, traditional striped tie, button-down shirt, and brown shoes. I boarded shortly after the two travelers. Walking down the aisle, row after row, I saw the aisle seat across from the young woman was unoccupied, and I sat down. I fastened my seatbelt, turned across the aisle, and introduced myself to the couple, and they politely responded. The young woman was Lisa, and her co-worker was Brad. Lisa explained that she and Brad were going to New Orleans for a management conference, and they had a 90-minute layover in San Antonio. I told them I was on my way to San Antonio too, where I was going to meet with lawyers to discuss my divorce. As soon as possible after the flight attendant's security briefing, I picked up the conversation with Lisa and offered to buy drinks for the three of us. Lisa and Brad thought it was a great way to kick off their trip to New Orleans, and I began to buy Bloody Marys for our little group. Our conversation was animated and fun. It was a party atmosphere. Lisa and Brad were excited. Neither had ever been to New Orleans. I kept ordering drinks for the three of us, and after about an hour in the air, since we were having a great time, I had another brilliant idea. Why stop here? I suggested to Lisa that I change my ticket when we land in San Antonio and go on with her and Brad to New Orleans, where I could show them around the French Quarter that night. Turning to Brad, who nodded in the affirmative, Lisa said to me, "Sounds like a great idea." When we landed in San Antonio, I got off the plane, ran to the Southwest Airlines ticket counter, bought a round-trip ticket to New Orleans on the flight I'd just been on, and returned to my seat on the plane across the aisle from Lisa. It was the 80s. You didn't have to go through security because there wasn't any security. The three of us cranked up our little party and we were off to New Orleans. We arrived in New Orleans about 5 in the afternoon. The three of us took a taxi from the airport to the Radisson, and I waited in the lobby while Lisa and Brad checked into their rooms and put their bags away. I didn't bring anything for this spur-of-the-moment trip. Once those guys were situated, we wasted no time and immediately hit the French Quarter. We lived it up on Bourbon Street, partying New Orleans style, eating, drinking, and dancing. There was even a little flirting and joking between Lisa and me. It was one of those scenes that plays out when groups of people make new friends on vacation. But for Lisa and me, it was what an old LA friend of mine once called instant intimacy. At one point on Bourbon Street, we stopped into a Cajun restaurant for gumbo and beer. When the hostess seated us in a booth, Lisa chose to sit on my side, saying, "I'm always sitting with Brad." Right then, though my old friends would have said I was completely delusional, I was pretty sure there was something going on between Lisa and me. Finally, around 1 a.m., reality hit Lisa and Brad, and they said they had a meeting at 10 in the morning and we better head back to the Radisson. And we arrived at the hotel around 1:30 in the morning. At that moment, we all realized I didn't have a hotel room. This trip was totally spontaneous. There was zero advanced planning. Actually, I was on my way to San Antonio to deal with my divorce. And right now, in the middle of the night, I was in New Orleans, all because I'd become mesmerized by an amazing young woman I saw in the airport in Los Angeles. The same young woman who was now standing in front of me, smiling and acting like the three of us had met on a spring break trip to New Orleans. After a brief group discussion, and to this day, I'm still kind of shaking my head, Lisa offered to let me stay in her room because she had 2 beds. We agreed that we were just friends traveling together, sharing a hotel room. Brad agreed it was a reasonable idea, and it didn't make sense to get another room for just a few hours. Brad went to his room, and Lisa and I went to hers. We were tired from traveling and partying. I thanked Lisa for letting me stay with her, and we had a good night hug. We got in our separate beds, undressed under the covers, and fell asleep. Sorta. Lying in bed with Lisa only 5 feet away, I couldn't sleep, and I started to think about getting in bed with her. I was trying to justify it to myself. On Bourbon Street earlier, I thought we had a connection. I mean, after all, she invited me to stay in her room. The situation reminded me of my wild time as the resident musician at Sunrise Ski Resort in the White Mountains of Arizona, where my hotel room was home to a constant stream of female skiers from Phoenix and Tucson. So I made a decision. I got up, went to Lisa's bed, and got under the covers with her. Though we had previously agreed that this was just traveling friends sharing a hotel room, it was apparent that it had become more than that between us. Remember instant intimacy? Lisa greeted me with a hug and kiss, which soon evolved into consensual sex. I think it would later be referred to as a one-night stand. I've even heard some people justify similar situations saying, "What the hell, I was on vacation." I don't know what time it was, but after a while, you could see around the edges of the blackout drapes, it was getting light outside. And the phone on the nightstand rang. Lisa picked it up and answered. It was her fiance calling to say good morning and ask about her first night in New Orleans. The situation immediately became uncomfortable for both of us. And as Lisa was telling her fiance about the amazing time she had in the French Quarter, I got dressed, nodded to her that I understood, waved goodbye, and left for the airport.